Learn how to solve a system of equations by graphing both of those equations and where those two lines crossed. It works on other equations, not just lines, but where the two lines crossed at was the solution for both equations. Like if they cross right there, maybe the answer would be like 4, 0 or something. So that's what we did yesterday. So that actually is like the least efficient way to solve a system of equations. Today we're going to learn how to do it without graphing. And I think we'll probably, since it's Wednesday, we probably will have to work on this tomorrow too. These kind of take a while. And then on Friday we'll learn what I think is usually the best way to do it. But today we're learning something called substitution. What does substitute mean?
Like basketball, you put something in for something else.
Okay, you replace something with something else. So, yeah, like basketball, if I'm gone, I'll have a substitute, right? It just means somebody replaced me. Okay, so we're just going to learn by doing here. We're just going to jump in. Go ahead and show your work on these. Negative 2x minus 3y. There's only 20, but they are a little bit time-consuming. Not as time-consuming as graphing, probably, but still a little bit. Okay, substitution means replace. So on substitution, you need one of your equations to say like y equals or x equals. Okay, because if y is equal to 6x minus 11, what that means is I can replace y with 6x minus 11 because they're the same thing. So in this in the other equation, I'm going to replace the y with 6x minus 11. Okay, why does that help? Well, we'll see in a second. So this bottom equation, it's negative 2x minus 3 times y, but we're going to replace the y with that, 6x minus 11. Okay, how does that help?
You do distributive property.
Right, we now have a one variable equation, which means it's solvable. Okay, this can be solved. These two equations can't really be solved by themselves because there's like infinite solutions. But remember there's like usually one common solution, so this should be it. Actually, I didn't look at the answer sheet. Remember there were two weird cases yesterday, like no solutions or infinite solutions? I didn't see if I put any on here. There is one odd no solution and no infinite solution. Okay. Yeah, so after you substitute, it's kind of like normal math. What do you guys think we should do? Distribute. Yeah, the negative 3, and that is a negative 3, gets multiplied on both of those. So it becomes negative 2x, negative 3 times 6x is negative 18x, negative 3 times negative 11. A lot of you guys get the second part wrong because you don't bring the negative. It's positive 33. Now what can I do? Okay, usually I clean up, the book calls it simplify, I clean up the both sides if I can. Negative 2x minus 18x is negative 20x. You could have subtracted 33 first. Okay, now it's a normal problem, right? Okay, so divide by negative 20, and we get x is 2. Here's a very big hint for today's assignment. If you get a fraction, you did it wrong. Not that you can't get fractions on these problems, they just set this worksheet up. Probably on the chapter review there's a fraction or two, I don't remember honestly, but like when you do Algebra 2 there will be some fractions, but they're a little bit nice to us. No fractions, it could be negative, Okay, are we done? No. So remember yesterday when we had an answer, like where the two lines crossed? It's two different numbers, like an x value and a y value. So maybe like 2, 3. That's a solution for these problems. Because there's two variables. So if you get an x value, you need the y value also. So how could we find the y value? That's right. So once you have x is 2, you can go up here to one of your equations. It doesn't really matter which one. Actually, this one will be easier because y is going to equal 6 times x minus 11. So if you just plug in 2 right here, that will tell you what y is. We could have also tried to plug it in down here. It would have been a little bit harder because it doesn't say y equals. But 6 times 2 is 12 minus 11 is 1. So when x is 2, y is 1, and that is the answer. So you can write it like that. The book likes to write their answers in ordered pair form. If you write it like this, though, you have to make sure the order is right. Like the x comes before the y. But I'm just going to write it like this. Make sure no mistakes.
Wait, how did you get one again?
I plugged x equals 2 back into one of the original equations to find out what y is. 6 times 2 minus 11. You could check your answer. Okay, my answer was 2, 1. We could check the answer by plugging in the other equations that we didn't get the y from and see if it actually works. It's got to work in both equations, but it works, so I'm just going to keep rolling. Number 3. I don't think I'll probably finish the whole 20 today. Probably just do most of them.
Did we do the work
Maybe
on a
half.
separate sheet of paper, or do we have to do it on the worksheet?
Yeah, if you do it on separate, you need to staple it. I know there's not a ton of room in there, so you need to maybe write tiny, smaller than you normally would, or you could do a separate sheet or whatever. Alright. So really it's the first step. We haven't quite learned everything yet, but we got the main idea. It's the first step that's a little bit weird. Does anybody want to help me with number 3? Alright.
You replaced y with minus 3x plus 5.
Right. Okay, and it doesn't always have to be y. Sometimes it might say x equals, and you can replace x. But y is equal to negative 3x minus plus 5, so we can exchange the y in the second equation, substitute. So the second equation becomes 5x minus 4 times negative 3x plus 5. Okay, so when you distribute, make sure you bring the negative with you on both of them. Negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12x. Negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. Five x plus 12x is 17x. Okay, plus 20. It's really just the first step that's new to us. 17x equals 17. Actually, I think I might have mentioned substitution before, so it's not even that new. X equals 1. Remember, no fractions on today's assignment. Y equals... Okay, this first equation would be the easiest one to plug in 1 because it says y equals blah, blah, blah. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3 plus 5 is 2. So 1, 2 is the answer. Okay, 5's a little bit weird, but it's actually easier than the other ones. Negative 3y equals 18. Okay, so it just says y equals negative 2. Well, what does that tell us?
It's a straight line.
Well, yeah, we're not graphing though. Not thinking about it graphically right now. Y equals negative 2 is going to be the y value. That's like half our answer. So it's kind of like we've already found one of the letters, one of the variables. So we just need to plug in negative 2 for y in the other equation to help us figure out what x must be. So I would think of this as negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6 plus 6. Girls, you're probably going to be gone tomorrow too, aren't you? Hannah and Miranda. Is that it? Okay. Alright, anyways. I'll record the class. I don't know if you'll need it. If you remember what we did today or if you figure it out today, you might not need to watch it. Okay, so I got x is 3. Oh, I already had the y. I forgot what I was doing. So x is 3. They told us what y was negative 2, so that would be the answer. So James and Jonathan, I think you guys might. I didn't sign a slip for you two either, did I? So you guys might have to get a slip. Maybe I'll go grab some for you guys after we're done, if you remind me. Number 7. Okay, something is different about 7.
You have to change it.
Yeah, it doesn't say y equals or x equals, so I don't know what to substitute in for x or y. So how can I fix that?
You just do one of them, and you plug that in for the other.
Because it's already the plus y, so you would have to.
Right, I can change an equation to make it say y equals. We've done this a lot, right, when we're changing to slope-intercept form. If I add 4x on both sides, for example, on this one, I get y equals, is that 10x? What is this?
4x plus 6.
Yeah, it doesn't really, we don't know what it is, it's just 4x plus 6. Okay, so now I have an equation that says y equals. So y equals 4x plus 6, and I can, whoops, wrong one. I can replace this y with 4x plus 6. So I'm gonna still put parentheses right there. Instead of minus y, I'm gonna put minus 4x plus 6. Because we have to subtract all of y, so we have to subtract all of 4x plus 6.
So when you just want that distributive property.
Yeah, it's basically distribute. You need to subtract both of those. So it's negative 5x minus 4x minus 6 equals 21. Actually, 15, the last few are the hardest. So maybe we should do the hard ones today, that way. Let me finish this one, then maybe we'll jump to like number 15, 17, 19. Those are the hardest. Of course they say the hardest for the end. Okay, negative 5x minus 4x is negative 9x. So I got x is -3. Okay, where would be a good place to plug it? Actually, this, because I have a y equals here, -3, right there would be the easiest one. 4 times -3 is -12, plus 6 is -6. Alright, let's jump to number 15. Since, like, we're gonna have like 8 people gone tomorrow, I wanna do the hard ones first. Well, you guys are present. 6x plus 6y. Okay, so I have the same issue on this one that I did on the last one. It doesn't say y equals or x equals. So how can I fix that? This one's not that hard, really.
I did, you subtract the 5x.
Right, I can get this y by itself pretty easy by just subtracting 5x. On this,
You would have to divide.
you'd have to subtract 6x and divide by 6. Now, dividing by 6 on this one is not an issue, but a lot of times, you know, if you divide, you might make fractions. But anyway, if you have a single y by itself, then all you'd have to do is subtract 5x. That's the easiest letter to get by itself. We need an equation that says y equals or x equals. So now we have y equals -5x minus 13. Okay, I'm gonna make my life a little bit easier. You don't have to do this, but since all of these on the first equation are divisible by 6, I'm gonna divide both sides by 6. That makes the equation smaller and have to do less work. So now I'm going to turn this y into a -5x minus 13. So this equation will become x plus -5x minus 13 equals -1. When you're adding all that stuff, you don't really need the parentheses there, because it's basically just -5x minus 13, but I just put it there anyway. X minus 5x, or x plus -5x, is -4x. And that's a minus 13. Okay, so I got x is -3. And there's a handy equation to plug it in right there. All of these should give you the same answer, by the way. Any equation you plug in, if it's a correct equation, if you didn't screw it up when you changed it. -5 times -3 is 15 minus 13. Y equals 2. Okay, 17. What is it? Oh shoot, is it 10-10?
Yeah.
Darn. Alright, well, you guys will have more time to work on this tomorrow. We'll just keep going here. You're not gonna have much time today. 3x plus 3y. -3. Okay, what x or y could I get by itself?
The bottom one.
Okay, the bottom is going to be easier because it'll be easier to divide this one by 3. If I divide the top line by 3 or 4, I'm going to get a fraction. Okay, just to change it up a little bit, just to show you it's possible, I'm going to get x by itself instead of y by itself. So how do I get x by itself? I'm going to subtract 3y. It's the exact same process. There's no difference. So I have negative 3y minus 3
Divide by 3.
divided by 3. We actually could have divided by 3 at the beginning. Doesn't really matter. Divide by 3. So I get x equals negative 1, right? Y, or just negative y minus 1. Okay, so now, if you do this though, you gotta be careful. It's x equals this, so that means I can replace x in the other equation. And by the way, you don't wanna plug this back into the equation it came from. You'll just get something like 0 equals 0. It will not be helpful. You need to plug it in the equation that it did not come from. So I'm gonna plug that negative y minus 1 in for x in the top equation, because this is the second equation, kind of simplified. So I need to plug my new thing in my top equation. So the top equation is going to be negative 3 times negative y minus 1 minus 4y equals 2. So distribute 3y plus 3. 3y minus 4y is negative y. So I got negative y is negative 1, which means y would be, so basically you divide both sides by negative 1, that would make them both positive. So y is 1. And to find x, I can plug 1 in for y in one of these equations. This one looks easiest. So this would be negative 1 minus 1, which is negative 2. So y is 1, x is negative 2. If you write it as an ordered pair, it would look like negative 2, 1. But, yeah, x should come first. But I would just leave it like that. Of course, we're saving the best for last. Actually, 20 is easier than 19, so that's good news for you guys. Nineteen is the hardest. You guys tell why 19 is the hardest? There's no way to get a letter by itself without creating a fraction. It's not a problem. I mean, just fractions kind of tend to freak people out, I guess. So, like if I want to get x by itself, this one, I would add 7y and divide by 2. But dividing by 2 is not going to work out perfectly. Dividing by 5 or 8 or whatever, it's not going to work out nicely. But dividing by 2 is like the least difficult, so I'm going to get this x by itself. So I'm going to add 7y. You don't really have to do that on 20. On 20, you can get that top y by itself pretty easy. You just add 2x and divide by negative 1. anyways, okay, so we have 7y minus 17. Dividing by 2 will create fractions. Actually, you know what? It might seem easier if we just turn them into a decimal. You guys know what 7 divided by 2 is?
3.5.
3.5. Let's call it 3.5y. And 17 divided by 2 is 8.5. That might be a little less intimidating. You could just leave it as 7 over 2 and 17 over 2. Not like your calculator cares, or you might be able to do this in your head better. Okay, x equals that. So I'm going to replace x on the other equation, the top equation, with that. So the top equation is going to become -5. Whoops. I don't know why I wrote x right there. That's the new top equation. Okay, distribute, oof. Let's see, that'd be 15 plus 25, I think it's 17, yeah, 17.5. Plus 40 plus 2.5. Okay, either way, you're probably going to want to use your calculator, so it doesn't really matter if it's fractions or not. Okay, we got y's here. I'm going to put those together. They're on the same side. -17.5 minus 8 is -25.5. I really hope this comes out right, so I don't have to find where I made a mistake. And like I said, I can kind of tell whether it's right or not if my final answer is not a fraction. That's a pretty good indicator. Let's see, hold on. 35.5, or is it 34?
This is 25.5.
Oh yeah, 25.5, that's right. It's
Or
negative. Oh, of course. And then if we divide by -25.5, we get y is 1. So the answer is still not a fraction. Okay, if y is 1, let's plug that right there. 3.5 times 1 is 3.5. 3.5 minus 8.5. 3 minus 8 is -5. That would be it. All right. In the remaining time, I want you guys to do number 2 if you haven't yet, because I'm going to come around. I want to see your number 2. Yeah, who needs a slip? 1, 2, 3, Hannah, got it? Just 3, grab 3. 3 counting you. So if your x was wrong, that means y was wrong. But it should have been positive. Okay, so y equals x minus 1, and then you can turn this y into an x minus 1. So rewrite the top equation. Get it? No, that's not it. Okay, this would be a negative 3 times negative 1.
It'll be a positive.
3.
Okay.
You get 2. Yeah, that was positive 4. Crap, already. That was positive 4. Let's see. The y is gone, by the way. It got replaced with this. So this is negative 3 times negative 1. So that should have been positive 3. So this is negative 1. That was right. So if you have a plus 3 right there, you would have to subtract 3, and that would have been negative 4. So you have negative 1x equals negative 4.
Is this right?
Yep. Yeah, that's
This is really good, chicken.
right. Yep. That's right. What? Yep. I forgot who that looked at. You would normally, but that's not. So give it a plus. Alright, I'll check it tomorrow if you did. Yes, right.
So we are